There was a drug once that was considered completely safe. So safe that it didn't require a prescription in some countries. So safe that it was given to pregnant women. Women who trusted it, doctors who recommended it, companies who promoted it. It was meant to help with something simple. Nausea, sleep, anxiety, nothing extreme, nothing dangerous, just a small pill to make things easier. It was called thalidomide. In the late 1950s, thalidomide entered the market, developed by the German pharmaceutical company Chemie Grünenthal. At the time, it was presented as a breakthrough, a sedative that was different from others, safer, non-addictive, difficult to overdose on. It was marketed heavily, promoted as gentle, reliable, even suitable for pregnant women, and that's exactly how it was used. Doctors prescribed it for morning sickness. Women took it early in pregnancy, often without hesitation, because there was no reason not to. The drug had been tested, approved, distributed, and no one had warned them. At first, nothing seemed wrong. Then slowly, reports began to appear. Babies were being born, different. Some had severely shortened limbs. Others had no fully formed arms or legs at all. Hands attached close to the shoulders, feet near the hips. The condition would later be known as phocomelia, a rare congenital disorder. But suddenly, it wasn't so rare anymore. Doctors began noticing patterns, unusual clusters, an increase in cases that couldn't be explained. Something had changed. At first, there was confusion. Birth defects happen, rare conditions occur. But this was different. The numbers were rising, across different regions, different hospitals, different countries, and the similarities were too specific to ignore. Eventually, questions began to form. What was causing this? What had changed? What were these mothers exposed to? And slowly, a connection emerged. Many of the affected mothers had taken the same drug, thalidomide. The realization didn't come all at once. It took time, observation, comparison. But once the pattern became clear, it was undeniable. Thalidomide was interfering with fetal development. Even small doses, taken during a critical window of pregnancy, could cause severe deformities. The timing mattered. Just a few days could determine the outcome. A woman might take the drug, feel relief from nausea, and never know that something irreversible had already begun. Inside the developing embryo, growth processes were disrupted, limbs failed to form properly, organs developed abnormally. And there was no warning, because the drug had been considered safe. At the time, drug testing was far less rigorous than it is today. Thalidomide had not been adequately tested on pregnant animals. Its effects on fetal development were not fully understood, but it was still approved, still distributed, still recommended, and by the time the connection was widely recognized, the damage had already spread. Thousands of children were affected, across Europe, across the world. Families were left searching for answers. Doctors struggled to explain what had happened, and the companies involved faced growing scrutiny. Why hadn't this been detected earlier? Why was the drug given to pregnant women? Why were the warnings delayed? The answers were complicated, but not entirely unclear. The drug had been assumed safe, because it didn't cause immediate, obvious harm in adults, but its effects on developing embryos were overlooked, ignored, or simply not investigated deeply enough. In some cases, early warning signs may have been missed, or not fully understood, and as reports of birth defects increased, the response was not immediate. Time passed. More cases appeared. More families were affected. Eventually, thalidomide was withdrawn from the market, but not before irreversible damage had been done. One country, however, stood apart. In the United States, thalidomide was never fully approved. This was largely due to the actions of one individual, Frances Oldham Kelsey, a reviewer at the Food and Drug Administration. She refused to approve the drug, not because she knew it would cause birth defects, but because she believed the data was insufficient. She requested more studies, more evidence, more safety data, and because of that delay, thalidomide never entered widespread use in the US, preventing what could have been thousands more cases elsewhere. the consequences were already unfolding. The thalidomide disaster changed medicine, changed regulation, changed how drugs are tested and approved. Stricter requirements were introduced, more rigorous clinical trials, better monitoring of side effects. But those changes came after the fact, after the damage, after the loss, after the lives that had already been altered. Children grew up with severe disabilities, facing challenges that could not be undone. Families carried the weight of something they never chose, all from a drug that was supposed to help. The most unsettling part of this story is how ordinary it began. A medication for nausea, a solution to discomfort, something simple, and yet it led to one of the most devastating medical tragedies in modern history, because the danger wasn't obvious, it wasn't immediate, and it wasn't expected, which made it all the more dangerous. Thalidomide wasn't given with malicious intent, but it was given without fully understanding the consequences, and that lack of understanding came at a cost measured not in numbers, but in lives changed forever, because sometimes the most dangerous things are the ones believed to be completely safe.